Artist Project is brought to you by Second Line Arts Collective. Learn how you can support at secondlinearts.org.
We're creating a platform for those who are curious, one that tells the story from the artist's perspective. Moments in time, captured from the innovators who are reshaping dance, music, theater, and the visual arts. This is the Working Artist Project.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Gregory Agid. Welcome to the Working Artist Project. Mr. Darrian Douglas, how art thou this evening?
Oh, thou art, Greg. How about that? Nah, man, I'm doing great, man. It's good to see everybody. We having a very exciting show. And right off the bat, Greg, you know what I gotta say. You know I gotta say it. This podcast is brought to you by Isotope. And I know, right? We need some theme music right there, man. You know, we had to pay the bills. We got to pay the bills first, y'all. If you want to be a sponsor, shoot us an email at secondlineartscollective at gmail.com. All right, Greg. We don't really have that much housekeeping. I think it's time to stop announcing that particular housekeeping. And what do you think?
We could just tell everyone, hey, ladies and gentlemen, we have this great camp coming up, and Marquise Hill and Jason Marcellus and all types of wonderful people are going to be there. And unfortunately, registration is closed.
If you really, really want to go, DM us and we'll consider it. All right. So without further ado, today's guest he's a percussionist. So he's a king, Greg, because all percussionists are kings, baby. And his name is Kofi. Kofi is a dope dude who I know just from around New York. He's played with people like Robert Glasper, saxophonist Casey Benjamin. He played with me, so he famous. You know what I'm saying? He's famous. He played with me, Greg. He's got a brand new record out called Nation Time. I'm sure we're gonna put our ears on a little bit later. We're gonna get into Kofi's background and explore him as a person. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Kofi to the Working Artist Project. What up, Kofi?
You. Hey man, I haven't played with Robert yet. I played with Casey though.
Okay, all right.
So
all right.
I had somebody help me with my bio.
Oh,
and
so
there was like, yo, you should put like that. I played with Casey. He's from the Robert Glasper experiment.
I see.
So it's a kind of a hezzy. I don't know if you play basketball. It's a little bit of a hezzy.
It's a hezzy. I see.
But
you know what? We're willing it into the future now. So now that
I know those guys. I know all of them and stuff. But,
Rob G, man, you gotta call Kofi, man. Stop fucking around. That's all.
We gotta do. I was just watching I know he loved Herbie. He gotta do the modern new standard. You feel me? And I gotta do the Don Elias role. You know what I'm saying?
No, absolutely. Look, man, Kofi, man, we've been kicking around New York I've been here for 9 years, and I think you're from around here. Yeah, I don't really know. Let's get into it, man. Tell us, introduce our audience to who you are.
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, I'm thank you for accepting my self-invitation. You remember when we met? We met on that. It was a Hudson Horns gig. That joint with
I remember that. Yeah.
when randomly Jamie Foxx was there.
Yes, I remember that.
And there was like a half a monsoon.
Yeah,
bro. Jamie Foxx was there. It was like an AOL or Time Warner.
Yeah,
like it was wild. It was a wild event. Like
one of those just only in New York gigs.
Yeah, like it was wild. It was outdoors, but it was like a half a monsoon rainstorm happened, and we had to go into under this tent, and like it was wild. We played for like 30 seconds.
Yeah. Yo, Kofi, do you remember that he had a guy to carry his man purse?
What? No, I did not remember that. Nah, because I only saw it when he was on stage doing the hosting. He was doing the shoot. He was dancing and stuff. Anyway, that was wild.
That's
That was
how
a
you know
long
you
time.
made
It was like 2 days.
Someone else carrying your purse.
Yeah, that's a different level of luxury.
I gotta get me one. Somebody carry my man bag, bro. That's
Get the
but
merce. You gotta have a merce holder. But
Yeah,
yeah, I remember. I would
don't
only,
do that.
mention that because I remember meeting you then. I was like, okay, this guy, he got some shit with him. Like he was like, it was like we had a good conversation. I'm just not used to. It was layered. You know what I'm saying? I can't remember everything we talked about. Sometimes you don't remember what you talked about with somebody, but you remember how you left the interaction. When you made him, I remember. I would never forget you from that moment. But yeah, well, I'm from here, from born and raised in Queens, New York, Jamaica, Queens. Um, yes, like my parents are not from Queens though. My father was born and raised in Panama, in Central America. My mother was born in the South, but raised in Brooklyn. She was born in Mississippi. My mother's side of her family is from Mississippi and Louisiana, New Orleans, Bogalusa, Louisiana, also Mississippi. My father's side is from Panama, but also Costa Rica. My grandparents are from Costa Rica. His parents are from Costa Rica, and they moved to Panama and had my father and his sisters, and then he moved to New York when he was like 14, moved to Brooklyn. So I'm, Black American and Afro Latino. That's my roots. But yeah, you know, but I also grew up a lot in Brooklyn. Brooklyn is like my another home for me because it's like if it's my father moved to Queens, like I'm from Queens, born and raised. It's like if I moved to Brooklyn right now and have my kids, it was like that. My father was in his 30s. He's already a grown man when he moved to. He was like, it was like moving on up kind of thing. Like he moved out to Queens and get a house and build, have a yard for your kids and stuff like that. But he's from Crown Heights. My mother's from Bed-Stuy, so every weekend was in Brooklyn. I know more about Brooklyn than I do about Queens. I grew up traveling through Brooklyn more than Queens. That's where I first started really playing professionally, was that stuff in Queens and stuff in Brooklyn, and it's where I kind of made my bones. And so Brooklyn, Queens. I always say I was raised in Brooklyn, Queens, and Ghana in West Africa, because that's another place I spent a lot of time as a kid. My parents are very, very like Afrocentric and like radically. So like they changed their names. They only wore African clothes. They, ate African food. It was very like, like I said, radical. You know what I mean? So that's what I was raised in. So my father and my mother, they started traveling to Ghana in the 80s, like around 85. I was born in 1986. So between 85 and 96, 97, my parents, especially my dad, had been to Ghana already like 15 times. He would go all the time, like every year, sometimes 2 or 3 times a year. So by 1997, I was 11 years old and I'd heard all these stories about Ghana. So I was excited. And that was my first trip. It was in 1997 at 11 years old. And then between 1997 and 2007, I traveled to Ghana 4 times. Like every other summer, I would go for like 3 to 6 weeks at a time, staying in the village, studying, hanging out, getting in trouble, like, regular stuff like you do when you're a teenager, messing with girls, like just living. Like, you know what I mean? I'll be by myself. Or with my brother, which was like being by myself. You know what I mean? We was young, kind of just living our life. We had people out there that was like family. So we would stay at their house or one of their properties. But that's like my upbringing. It's like growing up in the neighborhood, being surrounded by music in my neighborhood. My father was a musician, alive, but retired, but was a musician. My father did the same thing I do. He was a percussionist, but he played timbales. It's a timbalero. So I grew up with drumsticks and percussion instruments and, go traveling back and forth from Ghana, having, my father was a drum collector. He didn't play any of these drums, but he would just bring back like shipments of drums every time he went to Ghana. So after all these years, 20, 30 years of Ghana, now in my family collection, we have probably over like 40, 50 drums. So I grew up with these drums around me and learning this, music. It's like even more to it than I could even say right now. It's like deeper than I'm even saying. This is like the really abridged version, but I feel like it's important if somebody would want to know why I am the way I am, why I'm interested in the things I'm interested in, or why my music might sound a certain way, or why I'm, politically engaged in certain things that I am, why I'm interested in my community, all of that is the foundation of that, kind of being very Afrocentric and, nation building, minded, but also very New York streets, very like, I didn't go to like, my school journey was very like, you would never know. Like I got kicked out of schools and, you know what I mean? And was getting in trouble, arrested, like got kicked out of 2 different high schools and I'm getting my GED. Like my life was supposed to go a whole different direction, but music really, like my love of music really just kept me, my love of music and my fear of my father. You know what I'm saying? That's why people talk about, oh, they didn't have a father around. It's like, you don't really know what that is until you see how it affects someone not having that kind of presence. Or you don't know the opposite unless you, like, for instance, me growing up on my block in my neighborhood, most of my friends didn't have their pops. You know what I'm saying? So I saw that was like a big like factor into why, at the fork in the road, I went right. You know what I'm saying? My dad, that presence, it was impactful to say the least. So yeah,
that's beautiful, man. And now I remember our conversation from like 7 years
ago. Okay.
we talked about Ghana and my wife's uncle is on here and he was just asking like, were y'all a part of like the Ghana campaign, like the year of return? How
so yeah, okay.
I remember us really going deep into your experience in Ghana because at the time I was really
wow.
You remember that?
It's like now it's coming back. You know how it be, bro. We be in it, like
yeah. But
no, the year of return, that's like something that is incredible and amazing, but it's it's new. You know what I mean? And this coincides with a certain kind of numerical anniversary kind of thing. But we've been traveling to Ghana. Like I said, my family been traveling to Ghana since '85. Like consistently, you know what I mean? Like, my name Kofi I was born in 1986. So my family in the 80s were already, all my siblings, we all have Ghanaian names, in particular Akan names, right? So based off that naming system that exists through the Akan people in West Africa, there's these day names. So my name is the male name for a boy. The name for a boy born on Friday is Kofi. So that, this kind of philosophy, incorporating these ancient African philosophies into our lives as African Americans, my parents were on that in the 70s and 80s. You know what I mean? So that's how I was raised. It was like a lot of the things that are becoming popular now, there's always been communities of people that have been living this way, right? Literally since back to Marcus Garvey days. Like we could trace it back. These communities have always existed, but I think there's just more visibility now, which is great. Movements like the Year of Return and stuff like that. One of my good friends, family friends, Diallo Sumbri, he's one of the people who he works with the Ghana Tourism Board. Like we were raised similarly. His parents were also in the Khan community, and the African art community, drum and dance and stuff like that. That's another thing that I'm a part of. So yeah, man, the year return is dope. We've been involved with that kind of philosophy and mindset for 30 something years, 40 years.
You know, when I was a kid, I had a chance to go visit my where my parents grew up in Switzerland, and I feel like that those experiences, like leaving the States and kind of seeing, you know, where my family was from, really had a huge impact on how I saw myself. And I was wondering if you could kind of dig into how those experiences in Ghana influenced like how you grew as a person and how you see yourself, and maybe how that would have been different had you not had those experiences.
Yeah, well, it impacted me in a way that that may be, unpredictable. In one way, it made for me so crystal clear that I'm not an African in that way, where there's a difference in how I was, in my experience, right? Like, literally, phenotypically, the way I look, being raised on this side of the water, the way my ancestors are gonna, in many cases, forcibly end up intermixing, right? I don't know, because of enslavement and things like that. I don't know what was going on, but I know being dropped into Ghana and West Africa, just by the way I look, I could walk around and be like, oh, it's something else going on inside of what I got going on. There's other parts of my experience that let me know that I am a descendant of Africans for sure. But my life and this is, and by the way, this was challenging, right? To confront, because for me, I was not raised to say I was Black. I was not raised to say I was African American, Afro-American, anything like that. I was raised saying you are African. That's who you are. Your identity is that of African people. You should be proud of that, right? And then I get to Africa and they see me, and the first thing they say is, "Oh, Bruni, hey, oh, Bruni," which means white man. So me, right? Me with in America, I'm considered dark skinned, right? I'm not a light skinned person, a fair skinned person, as they say, which is an interesting choice of words. But I'm brown chocolate. I go to Ghana, I'm red bone, right? So that was challenging to confront. That it's almost like a confrontation with my history, with the fact that my ancestors were in some cases might have been raped, right? Like, I don't know. Like, you know what I'm saying? All I know is I'm not 100% continental African. I know that, right? And I know that impacts my DNA. I know that impacts the way I view myself, the way I view the world, right? And I know the way the world views me. Because when you go to Ghana now, things are shifting. Consciousness is shifting. Information is spreading. So things are shifting. Africans are becoming more conscious, as it were. But when 25 years ago, when I was traveling to Ghana, it was like, hey, Bruni, it was, you are a white person, you're a white person, you're a foreigner. Like, we see you as a means for us to come up. Like, you know what I mean? I'm just being very, very honest. Like, you know what I mean? That's what happened then. But at the same time, I also, was given the opportunity to see where a lot of our shit comes from, culturally, musically, just the way Africans are so organized and orderly, and the way they are so sticklers for protocol and tradition and ritual, it shows up all throughout the diaspora, right? It shows up in the Black church. It shows up in the projects, right? Like it shows up all around us. For me, it did those two things, right? Which is a paradox that is unique to the, Black American or African American, which is this like bifurcated, existence of being this African, but also being this new thing, right? Which is this African American, which is Blackness, right? Which is Blackness, which is its own thing. It's not Africanness, right? It's the derivative. It's the derivative. It's derived from that, but it's not that. I can say that confidently because I've been immersed in both experiences. When we would travel to Ghana, it wasn't just tourist stops. Like I was staying in a town called Ejisu, which is in the Ashanti region. That's where I spent most of my time. I have family there. I say family because they're not my blood family, but I've been around them all my life, and they helped raise us. And we'd be there and be cooking for us, or they'll be getting water from the well. And we would see them come back with the water on the big basin on their head. They had this big oil drum. It was empty, cleaned out oil drum. They would come with maybe like 10 gallons of water in the big basin. They would walk miles and miles back to the compound, and they would come and they would slowly tip it over, and the water would come. And that oil drum was the source of water. I would dip in that water and boil it, and then put like a cap full of Dettol in it, and then go into the bathing stall with my like kind of plastic sponge, my soap, little bucket, some chaliwatas, some like slippers, like shower slippers, and get in there and boil the water to kind of disinfect it, because the water I can't ingest the water because I'll have dysentery, right? Because I'm American. It's like you keep getting confronted with this shit in real tangible ways that you are not from here. And if you are from here, it's been so long that the adjustment is like beyond what you can even comprehend, right? But bathing out of a bucket, watching the food get cooked on logs, like a pot that's on logs, right? Like me killing a chicken or a goat or something like that with my own hands, skinning it, right? So like I've been fully immersed in that world, and growing up here as well, fully immersed in this world, getting a chance to see how much I differ from that one and this one.
Like, man, when you experiencing such extremes, how does it affect your ability to see the beauty and the ease of American life?
So yeah, that's the thing. Like, it brings things into perspective for sure, because I remember, staying at my family's property. They had a building, apartment building, and I had an apartment in the building, right? And there was no air conditioning. There was just a standing fan. And I think about something like it being so hot, but just having a standing fan. It's like when there's no other option, what is available becomes luxurious. Like, right? So it's like you have this different sense of gratitude, because it's like, oh, thank God for this fan. Even though like the American in me was like, I wish I could just crank up some AC in here. But then when you finally get AC, it's like, oh my God. It's like you cherish it so much because but you get used to it. You get used to the heat, you get used to everything. And beyond get used to it, you love it. Like I grew to love that lifestyle of waking up, to the sound of the aunties or the grandmas sweeping out the door, the walkways or the hallways or the courtyard, which is all cement, and they got these brooms that are made from dried palm fronds, waking up before the sun comes up. They say before the cock crows, right? Before the morning is technically the morning, you're hearing that. So you're gonna get up early, 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. Everybody's up doing something, getting ready. Like the town is bubbling as the sun rises. I'm just, I guess, to bring it back to your question, I'm like reminiscing on Ghana and stuff, but coming back home, or even like, I remember the last trip I took to Ghana, I was there for 2 months. For 5 weeks of that time, or like, something like that, 5.5 weeks of that time, I was in the village. I was in 2 different villages. One that was super rural, and I was sleeping like on a mattress made of hay, because I was in this little town in the mountains called Late, which is in the eastern region. It's literally on the side of a mountain. And that was like really rural. And staying in Jisu was like staying in Bed-Stuy, which is like bustling and a lot of stuff happening and shit going on, but it's not the city. You know what I mean? But it's not the country rural either. It's like a post office and a police station and like a cell phone shop and people selling food and stuff on the side of the road, and a big truck might come through with lumber on it. Like, kids is going to school, people's like stuff going on. Late was just like very bare. But in each situation, what comes to mind is just gratitude. You just end up being happy for what you have. And you just look at life differently. You hear people say stuff like, oh yeah, these kids and these people, they were just like so happy, right? You hear these stories, people going to these, I guess impoverished, areas. You hear people are so happy. It's because it's not because they're happy because you realize how much you don't need in life. Right? They're happy because this is the way people should live. Right? This is actually the right way. That's where they're happy. You know what I mean? It's no excess. It's no option of excess. So that's what it did for me. I think it just brings into perspective. But I have coming back to Queens every time was just like, wow. You know what I mean? It was like back to reality. But like I said, I ended up loving Ghana. Like I had some wild experiences in Ghana too. I could tell you some stories. But for the most part, it's just the simplicity of life is addictive almost.
Man, I want to just jump in and thank you for sharing all that, because that's so deep and profound, and I really appreciate how vulnerable and just opening up about that entire experience was amazing. Man, I had a lot of what you said kind of resonated with me too when I got to visit Cuba. We went to Santiago, a bunch of my high school students, and a lot of the stuff that you're saying too is like these people didn't have a lot of the same things that we had. But I was just amazed at how happy they all were. It just the sense of community and the ability to connect with people was really beautiful. And man,
Cuba's that's one place I gotta go, man.
you gotta go. Oh yeah,
go.
you gotta go.
Man.
The people are just incredible. Such incredible people. But before you were telling us some of your stories about your time in Ghana, you made a comment about how music had kind of like changed the direction in your life.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, if you could kind of further elaborate on like,
sure.
I know I think it's like, as an educator and as Darrian and I are very intertwined in the whole nonprofit grant writing thing, and
Yeah.
a lot of times we we're always trying to sell our programming as an opportunity to help people and trying to change their lives and things like that. So I was wondering, is someone who described themselves as going through that process, like how did music change your life, and what did it do for you?
Okay, this is going to be a Kofi answer, which means you're not gonna know what the hell I'm talking about till like maybe 2 minutes in. But I got to start further back. So like I started my relationship with music starts in the womb, first of all, because my parents were artists. My father was a musician. He played with, he's a quote unquote, he played in the world that might be considered jazz, or like also like kind of avant-garde though, experimental kind of stuff, using a lot of different, African instruments and stuff like that. He was a part of this band called the Kotoko Society that was led by a guy named Kimati Dini Zulu, who comes from a really great family legacy as far as like Black art goes. So when I was born, my father would have already been playing for 20 something years when I was born. I'm the youngest of 7 kids. So when I came along, so much had already happened, right? My father was on his way out the door because our father retired from playing at like 40 something, which is early, for a jazz musician. You know what I'm saying? You'll be playing until we keel over if you let us, you know what I mean? Us who like, whatever. But yeah, he had like an actual real degree and a real job though, and had 7 kids. And my mother passed away when I was 4 years old. So he was a single dad with a bunch of kids. Like music wasn't cutting it. He ended up just getting some real jobs, ended up working for the city for 30 years as an executive for the Board of Health. My father was the executive director of minority health for the city of New York for like 30 years. So he worked on a lot of programs in the 90s that were centered around like HIV and AIDS and safe sex and stuff like that. He, pioneered a lot of stuff around that. But music was always around me from when I was young, from my dad playing. My mother really was a great fan of music. So it was always around. And my first time like making a step out to want to be involved with something musically I was about 9 years old. I joined like my school had like a glee club. I like auditioned and like sang, like I think I sang like the Star Spangled Banner or something like that for an audition, got in, and like, we did a show, also like a play. It was actually around jazz. My teacher at the time was into jazz. She did this thing called the Magic School Bus: A Journey Through Jazz. And I played Pops. I played Louis Armstrong, who I have like a really strong connection with. And he like is a recurring thing in my life that I can touch on too. But I remember just doing that performance, I was like, ooh, I like this. You know what I mean? I remember I did my research on him, and they said he used to have a handkerchief. I went and got a handkerchief and like wipe my sweat. I was making like choices and shit. Like I was a little performer, you know what I mean? So that was the beginning of me. That lit the spark as a performer for me. It was at 9 years old that year, singing in the Glee Club and being in this play. And it was around jazz, and I had this cardboard trumpet. I remember getting into understanding this idea of jazz and musicianship and performance and all of this stuff around 9 years old. It kind of just like sprinkled the dust on me. And I never forgot it. And then in middle school, I got into like a full like choir called The Chosen Few. That was in my neighborhood, that was directed by this brother named Mr. PA, who passed away, God bless his soul. But I was in a choir in middle school, and then in high school, I started rhyming. I started rapping. I had like a group with my friends. We had a manager. We did shows. We like took label meetings. Like we recorded a demo. Like we were like serious at like 15, 16 years old. We were like, I had like a whole rap career. You know what I mean? Locally. To this day, there's people who still remember me from like kind of digging my feet in as an MC as a young kid. And like drumming was always there. Like I said, I grew up in a house. That's why I mentioned all of that earlier about growing up in a house full of drums. It's all around me, but when it's all around you like that, you don't take it as seriously. It's just life, right? Like you just and all my cousins played drums. My older brother, who didn't live with us, but he played drums. My dad, everybody drummed around me. So drumming, being able to play drums, wasn't special, right? So I didn't think that this could be a career path or something viable that could add anything to my life. It was something we did in our community, something I did for rituals. It was a personal thing until so in the connection to keep it me, to keep me out of trouble was, I was about 20 years old, 21 years old. And that was like the fork in the road time. This is like high school was traumatic. Like I always say I got kicked out, not expelled though, but I got kicked out of my first high school because it wasn't an expulsion, but it was like a meeting with my guidance counselor. And she was like, so check this out. You might want to go to this alternative school because they give a credit and a half as opposed to 1 credit. Because if you stay here, you're not going to graduate on time and you have like no credits. You're supposed to be like, you're not going to class. Like, I was just like, that's what my thing. I wasn't like some like gangster, brute. I did have an issue with authority and I did not like going to class. I would go to school, but it was just to like get fly and talk to girls and battle rap in the hallway and stuff like that. Like that's what I was on. I was always like more interested in being cool than like schoolwork. So I ended up going to this alternative school called Satellite. I got kicked out of Satellite and I ended up getting my GED and almost got kicked out of GED program. So this is important because I'm letting you give you at this time, I'm like beat up by the world, right? I'm 20 years old, 19, 20 years old. I'm like getting kicked out of places. I'm like barely making it, got my GED by the skin of my teeth. And in middle school, I was messing up in school too. I got like left back in 7th grade, right? I also was dealing with trauma. My mother passed away when I was really young suddenly. And it was like a malpractice thing, how she died, like she wasn't supposed to die. Like, so it was like all of this shit is weighing on me. You know what I mean? So I was struggling with being in a classroom setting. I needed a different kind of attention that didn't really exist at that time. So I'm a 19-year-old kid with all of this kind of baggage and trauma and, quote unquote failures and stuff like that. I don't know what I want to do in my life. Right. And I grew up in the neighborhood where I grew up at Jamaica, Queens, where if I wanted to, and then, you do little stuff, here and there, but then literally so quickly, those little petty crimes and stuff can end up being the big stuff quickly because people don't know. Growing up in the hood, people like, how do you end up selling drugs or something like that? Literally, all you have to do is be available. All you have to do is want to do it. And it was all around me. Like one of my older brothers, he was in the streets hustling and we was chilling with his friends. They're like 10 years older than us, but I'm 19, 20. They really was like 20 years old. They was like 40 something years old. I'm like 20, 21 years old hanging around them. If I wanted to sell cocaine, I could come to them and be like, yo, front me some work. And they would literally give me the drugs for free. All I would have to do is bring the money back and then they would pay me. And now I'm a drug dealer, right? You don't have to have money to get in the game, like when you got connections that way. So I'm saying that to say that that was easy. That was the easy route. And by the way, that was a route that all my friends that were the same age as me were taking. Literally every single one was all like, oh yeah, we just sell drugs, duh. Like, I'm not gonna be broke. Like, we're not gonna get no job. There's no jobs or anything. So how are we gonna make money? Duh, crime, right? So it was like, that was an easy option. Somehow, I avoided that because, like I said, at 21 years old, I got a job working at the airport. And I worked at the airport for about a year, and that kept me out of the way because the schedule was so crazy. And then I left that job, and I was like dropped back into my neighborhood. And around the same time when I was like thinking about getting in the streets, my family has always been deeply involved with African drumming and dancing and culture. So my cousins have a summer camp that they would teach children dance and music, and it was an arts camp. So I remember going to my cousin like, yo, man, I ain't got nothing going on this summer. I'm 21 going on 22. I'm like, I just quit my job. I don't even know why I quit. I just didn't want to do it no more. Like, I don't have nothing going on. Can I just come work at the camp with y'all? He's like, sure. So I go to the camp, and being there every day, working with the kids, it changed me. Like, it changed something in me. I had already gotten an opportunity to teach when I was 13, because by 13 years old, I already knew a bunch of rhythms and songs and music just from my culture. I already knew a bunch of stuff. So I was already teaching a drum class at 13 years old, but that was kind of a fluke. It's just like what a family friend knew I could drum. And I was always like a hustler kid. Like, I want to get some money from young. Like, I'm talking about, we used to sell sodas, sell Kool-Aid, lemonade, wash cars. Like, I was on that type of time, like from early. So by 13, I was looking for a job. So, she told me she worked at this camp. I'm like, yeah, I can teach drum class. Sure. And I'm doing that. And I remember even then it sparked something in me, like giving in that way, sparked something in me. So working at the camp at 21, throughout that camp, I remember I worked the hardest at that camp. We would be drumming for the classes, and my cousins, they have a dance company called Asasaya African American Dance Theater. Now it's going at the 20-year anniversary. But at the time, they was around for like 6-7 years at that time. And I would come out after the camp day, I would go to the rehearsal. And there was this girl that was in the dance company who I had a crush on. So I was like, all right, now I got a reason to come to rehearsal. Because before they would be like, they was going to rehearsal. I was like, I'm going home. But then once I see Shorty was there, I'm like, all right, let me see what this rehearsal here for. And then my cousins would be like, yo, man, pick up a drum, man. You can drum. Because it was like a thing of like, they was hustling for real, like, and building this company and building creativity out. I was just like kind of playing with it. And in that camp, in that summer, this is summer of 2008, is when I was like, I really love drum. I always have found two of my like passions in my life that summer, which was performing and using my body as an instrument, essentially, which is what it means to be a drummer, and teaching and giving and imparting and instructing in that way. They're the two things in my life. Those are like the pillars of my life. And I found both of those at that time. So that's why I say music saved me in that way, because growing up, I could have, should have, would have been a statistic. All the like, I checked all the boxes. Single parent household, kicked out of school, GED, getting arrested, all that kind of stuff. Like 16, 17, 18 years old. Like my family, my pops, they kind of had given up on me at that time. Like there was no like push to like, yo, you should do this. It was like by that time, 20, you already know, Darrian, like a Black family, like by 19, 20, you kind of on your own. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
you on your own. So like my pops, I ain't have my mom. You know, your mother always gonna be my baby. I didn't have that. It was a pops who was very stern, Panamanian, Brooklyn street dude, jazz musician cat. Like, you know what I'm saying, intellectual, like just can't understand, like, oh, you maybe just going through something, just like, nah, get it together, motherfucker. Like, so, but I needed more balance. So then I also would rebel against that energy, because that's my spirit. My spirit is like that. Or whatever. Man. That's how I came to earth.
It's interesting how music enters the picture right at the right time. And I think a lot of us, maybe every musician has a similar story. It was like, if it weren't for music, thank God for music.
Had not been for the blood,
bro.
No, but yeah, like
us, like, that's a crazy story, man. I wanna we've been out, you know, man. We only have an hour, you know. We chopping it up.
My bad.
No. It's all good. It's been great. I want to make sure we hear the beauty of your music. You know, I want our folks to hear it. So this one, you got to help me pronounce this one, my brother.
Okay, Ntokwa.
There we go. You already know. So,
Ntokwa, yeah.
All right, y'all put y'all ears on this. Here we go. See, bro, we can't give them too much of that, Kofi. they gotta go out here and buy that. You know,
that's right. That's right.
Right off the bat, man. That was a true vibe, man. And it's something.
Thank you, man.
Something special was in that, the energy of that song. You know what I'm saying? I felt the intimacy there. And for me at the beginning, were those the brooms? That's what I wrote in the chat.
So
like the brooms to me.
So actually, what at the beginning is water. So it's like the way the album is the way we curated it is it's best to be listened to like straight through, right? Like it's like something that's happened. It's all connected. So before Ntokwa is this interlude called Asuoya, which is dedicated to Oluwatoyin. She was murdered that year, the 2020 young Nigerian sister. And her giving her speech, you hear the water, and the water is actually water drumming. So there's these women in Cameroon. This is video, just like anybody else. I'm on, like, I think I was on Facebook or something at the time. And I came across this video of these women drumming on the water. And they were doing this rhythmic thing in the water, using the water as percussion. And it was just blew my fucking mind. And it was, to me, also symbolic because in African cosmology, water is always represented by the feminine, and in the way that water can nourish or destroy in the way the feminine can, right? Like, that strength in also the softness and the water. So, and then that energy carries into Ntokwa, which the word in Tokwa is a word from the language tree, from the Kan people from Ghana, West Africa. And Tokwa means like struggle or fight. And the song, people often think when I say struggle or fight, I'm talking about like the struggle for liberation, which is always on that. But in that particular piece, it's not about that. It's about the internal struggle between the Black masculine and Black feminine. This like eternal relationship that can never be separated. But in the core of the relationship is the tension and the conflict that makes both sides strong. So it's just the beginning. It's just water energy, which, you know, just represents cleansing. And I also sonically love the way the water sounded with the drums. I was playing the talking drums. That's on the track. And the song itself, if people hear it, there's a conversation that takes place between Nikki Giovanni and James Baldwin, two great American writers and orators. And in the conversation they're having, it's like I felt it was so brilliant how the way they conducted the conversation, because they both conducted the conversations in a way that they represented all feminine and all masculine. James Baldwin is talking about my wife and my kids in a way where we know James Baldwin wasn't going to have a wife and kids like that, right? But it wasn't about that. He wasn't talking for himself. He was representing a whole aspect of his community. And it was so beautiful to me and selfless, this dialogue between these two power houses. So I feel like it signified the way, and the way they did it with love, I feel like was exemplary of how we can and should always handle these conflicts that happen between, I'm going to say men and women. I'm just going to say that, that I saw happening on the internet in 2020. Everything on this album is a result of what I saw happening in 2020 as a result of the lockdown and the way we were all kind of like breaking through to the other side, as you know, good old Jimmy Morrison would say.
Bro, that's deep. Man, what can you did you compose all the tunes? Like, what is your composition process like in something like this? And I've always
Right.
like as a percussionist and drummer, do you like also play any harmony instruments or?
Yeah. Yeah. So you see, I said my whole life story. At no point in that did you hear me say I was at a Jazzmobile or Berkeley 8-week, 10, whatever the fuck, camp or any of that kind of shit. Like, I was never at any camps, any composition. I never had any of that kind of stuff. Like, what I did have is my brother convinced me that I should ask my aunt to get me a keyboard for Christmas when I was like 10. He was like, you want a keyboard, don't you? I was like, yeah, I guess so. I mean, sure, keyboards are nice. He's like, yeah, you should tell him to get you a keyboard. I was like, okay. And I did. And so I've had like a keyboard in my family, in my house, in my life for a long, long, long time. There's always been I have access to a keyboard. So I would like mess around, and I'm just kind of grateful, lucky, whatever. I think it's a mixture of the very rich music diet that I grew up with and just God. You know what I'm saying? Like between like recognition of notes and having some familiarity of working my way through a keyboard. And then at some point in my 20s, beginning to kind of like, it really started for me just kind of like trying to make beats and like kind of just get my ideas out through my like little MIDI keyboard and just focusing on like shapes with my fingers and stuff like that. That led to me, and I sing too, so I can hear music, I can hear notes and melody and harmony because of that, I think. So everything I compose is by ear. So it's just kind of like I get in front of a keyboard, a piano, and all the deep listening I do of different kinds of music kind of shows up when I'm at a keyboard. And sometimes it is deliberate. I can say I want to make this kind of thing, and then I can try to find that with my ears. Or sometimes it just kind of like strikes me like a lightning bolt. The other song I sent, which I don't know if we have time to play now because I'm so fucking long-winded. But I just be like wanting to make sure I get certain things out whenever I'm speaking to a group of people. But because I'm on a mission, you know. But yeah, like the song I wrote, Rider for Big Floyd, it was like that. It was like a lightning bolt. It was like the idea just came and literally I just kind of like mashed it. I remember my computer wasn't working at the time, so I had to use GarageBand on my phone. I just kind of mashed out chords. I don't know. I just heard the chords and then I sung the melody into my phone. I'll do that too. Like I'll just get a melody idea and I'll just sing it into my phone. Sometimes I'll get a drum pattern idea, but usually I'll get a melody idea and then I'll like just using my ears, kind of come up with some chords around the melody that makes sense. And then also being a songwriter, I understand song structure and also playing in jazz ensembles for so long. I understand composition just kind of innately. I understand what the bridge is. I understand what the head is. I understand what these kind of more broad concepts are. So then I'll just like, the biggest aspect of all of that is just balls. Somehow, like I just got balls where I'm like, yeah, this fucking sounds good to me. So this is what I'm doing because it's how it feels good. Like, so I'm just riding with it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a certain aspect of it that's that. Yeah, you know.
I love it, man. You got to have balls. You know, my wife from Brooklyn, you know what I'm saying?
I'm about to say that was mad New York, right? Okay.
My wife from Canarsie. So
okay.
You know,
Okay.
but you know,
some calzones.
That's right. That's right. Dig it, man. We coming up on time. I just want to say one thing, and then we're gonna end this. And that is, I think that sometimes we as a people forget, and I'm talking about Americans here, forget that music comes from inside. It's a gift from the universe. Music ain't on nobody's page and it ain't in nobody's school. And sometimes we place these parameters on music that don't exist. And it forces a certain type of musician to live on the fringes, especially in the professional sphere. You know what I'm saying?
I think a lot of that is fostered by the institutions, though, too. I think like these yes, you know what I mean? Like these learning institutions, these schools and camps and that kind of world, they impose this idea of what is things. I think that's one of my greatest gifts is that I didn't grow up in that. So like I truly am coming from a place of just trusting my taste. Right? Like there's no like imaginary professor looming over my head. Like, no, you can't connect those. That quarterly doesn't make sense. It's like I'm just like doing what I feel. There's no like there's no jazz police. You know what I mean? Like I have no like any of that shit. So
yeah, I got some real vulgar thoughts that I'm not gonna say right now, Greg. You already
keep it gangster, my G.
I don't want to get canceled.
That's such a true thing about schools. Like for a lot of these subjects, not every subject, but schools just imitating what exists already in life. And I think we see it backwards now, where life exists in school, and you know, like people play music all over the world, and schools just, you know, trying to cram it all into a building.
They gotta they guess they hustle, man. They gotta get.
Like I always say, like too. if my kids want to be musicians, I'm not gonna say don't go to school, but I ain't gonna try to send them to school for music. Like my thing is, you can go to school for something else, business, learn how to run your business, learn how to. If you really want to be an artist, we're gonna get you. But for music, I'm gonna go send you. If you want to play drums, you're gonna go with your uncle Marcus Gilmore. We're gonna give him that money. You want to play piano, we're gonna go with your uncle Samora Penderhughes. Like, you know what I mean? That's who you're gonna go with your Uncle Boom if you want to learn bass. Like, I'm gonna send them to the Cats if you want to play. you know what I mean, and go out on the scene, go sit in and embarrass yourself.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, and go to school for accounting or some shit like that, or something you can go get a job with. Like,
go to school for something someone can actually teach you.
Right.
That's right.
Thank you. How about that?
It's like, I can't teach. All right, y'all. Look, man, this is fun, man. We having a good time.
Thank
y'all.
you. Thank you.
Look,
Thank you, guys.
we coming up on time as we always do, and it's very unfortunate. But before we go, Kofi, we want to give you the opportunity to tell all our listeners where they can connect with you on the socials, how they can buy your custom drums and t-shirts and all that stuff. Where can they get at you at?
Again, thank you. You know what I'm saying? I do not take this lightly. I don't be getting a lot of opportunities to come and wax poetic. You know what I mean? So I'm grateful to talk over time. I don't have a Facebook anymore because Facebook sucks and they keep blocking me out and I don't know what the hell's going on and I give up. So I think Facebook is over for me. I have TikTok, which is just like, follow me on TikTok, I guess. I have an Instagram, which is like my main hub right now. Just my name at Kofi Hunter. You can follow me there. That's really where I post any news of stuff I have going on. What else? You could buy the music. It's everywhere you can get music digitally, but the best place to get it is, of course, on my Bandcamp site, because I actually get money from that, which is good. Getting money is actually good for an artist. I have some t-shirts and hoodies and socks up on my Teespring. You go to Teespring, Kofi Hunter store. If you want to come see us live, I'm starting back my weekly residency at this spot called Cafe Erzuli in Brooklyn every Wednesday night. It's like 2 sets and then like a jam. It's soul sets called Soul Sessions. So we're doing like Jill Scott, Luther Vandross, Shaka Khan. Like we got Camila singing lead, she's over at Ray Angry's thing on Mondays, but we've been doing this for a little while now. She's incredible. The band is great. Got Parker McAllister on bass, Dom Jervis, young Dom on drums. This cat Idris Frederick on keys, and I'm playing percussion, playing congas. Also, I'm bringing a band to Smalls on May 18th. I haven't officially announced that yet, but it's happening. So, and I'm excited about that because we played before, but it was during the pandemic, like heavy, so it was like nobody there. This is my first time bringing a band in with as a crowd. That's May 18th. Yeah, I'm doing a sneaky solo set May 4th at like midnight at the spot in Brooklyn. If you really give a fuck, you can holler at me and you'll find out about it. I didn't even ask if I can swear on here like that. Hopefully it's not little babies.
Trust me, dog. We have a rated R explicit rating. You can say
whatever you want. Good. So as I was saying, balls. No, but fuck. So that's what's going on with me. And I hope people want to get involved and pull up on your boy. I got more music coming out and more stuff that I am hesitant to announce yet too.
Beautiful, man. Kofi, yo, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank y'all. Greg, nice meeting you, brother.
Man, pleasure to meet you. And man, I appreciate all the things you shared with us today. It was really, really great getting to listen to you.
Thank you, brother. It was fun. I had fun. Darrian, let's go. Let's do
we
it.
out here. We out here.
You know what I'm saying? Like, let them know.
We out here. Yo, so look, man. All right. My name is Darrian Douglas.
And my name is Gregory Agid. Y'all have a wonderful evening.